Hey there, Sebastian here. Just a quick tutorial on the Chatty AI, or the system of radio communications messaging between monster entities that allows monsters to notify other monsters of events, being attacked, dying, needing assistance, needing healing. Now there's two monsters here, this one and this one over here. Once the first one was below 50%, he calls out to the second one, who came to his assistance and attacked me. So a fairly simple interaction, but he otherwise would have just been wandering off and ignoring me. Now the system is implemented in the character monster or monster character entity script in some core additional functions. Two important things to worry about is send communication, receive communications should be enabled depending on how you want to run it. Otherwise they will ignore the events being sent and not send events on actions, simply to avoid having your system flooded with events if something's not going to listen to them or if something's not going to hear them. There is an example script, or an example behavior designer script called Chatty Monster AI, and at the moment we're only worrying about the behavior designer. We'll look at the other stuff later, that implements your standard attacks and everything else, but the important stuff to worry about is we are utilizing a couple of tasks here. So as a decision whether we should ask for help, and a decision is somebody going to ask for help, in that order. Essentially asking for help being more important than is someone asking for help. We can have a look at the functions we're using. The task, our first one is using the check monster state, which allows you to check a variety of states. So this one's checking to see if its hit points are less than 1% of 50, then there is a success. It moves on. It checks an internal variable, temporary variable, which is behavior tree has a bunch of temporary variables here. It checks to see has it called for help before, so it doesn't spam the calls. So it compares that against false. If that is a success, it moves on to the actual call for help. There is a variety of radio messages. This is a call for help or send radio message task. Attacking, I died, I'm fleeing, I'm waiting, I'm going home, I need healing, need buffing, need help. The attacking one is often sent by the monster entity script on attack initially, but you can also override that and do that here. It will pass a couple of parameters in the message. One, who it's targeting at the moment. This is optional. You could send nothing, and say, for example, if you send the healing task, you don't necessarily need to know who you're targeting. You just need to know who sent it. And it also passes an LI ID. That's another variable set up in Behavior Designer, and the LI ID I think is 100 for this character, if you check the characters themselves. So that sends the message. That's a success, and it can fail in a few cases if you actually have send messages turned off for this monster entity. This will always fail if it can't find the monster entity, etc., etc. But yeah, generally it should succeed. And then the last thing it does is it basically says I have called for help and sets the radio boolean to true. So the next time it detects that he's below 50% hit points, it will discover that it has already called for help, fail, and exit out, and will never call for help again. The response section is a similar sequence. It checks to see if it has a target already. If it has a target already, it doesn't allow this call for help to override the target. You'll notice I have an inverted decorator here, and that's basically because the target returns a success if we have a target. And this is a sequence, so it continues for every success, it continues on. And so if you don't have a target, it would return a fail, exit out, and never check to see if it got called for help. So we don't have a target, it returns a fail, we invert that to a success, and we carry on. If we do have a target, we return a success, we invert that to a failure, and we exit out and don't do the rest of it, which is how we would want it. Our call for help is actually a behavior tree, a behavior designer task, has received event. Unfortunately, these events are all text-based, so check the documentation, you'll see the different types of events that are supported here. So the call for help of type need help will actually send to behavior designer the text monster need help as part of the event name. Its stored value we will store in a temporary targeted player value. That's the first value that we sent, the targeted player. The second one is the radio ally group, also stored in a temporary variable, which was the ally ID here. And then we hit a sequence at this point. So we've received this event. Now these events will not be received. They are checked internally in the code. So if they are sent by themselves, they do not receive themselves. So this monster has a get object ID in the kit code. It sends that, receives it, and will never get this event here because it says, no, look, I sent this message. There's no particular reason for me to invoke this event. So these events can only be received here. They only get to the behavior trees if they're not sent by themselves. So we get further on, we hit this final sequence. First thing we do is we check to see if the ally ID in the message is the same as ours. If it's not, we fail, and we exit out and nothing happens. If it is the same, so it is an ally ID that is the same as ours, so we wish to protect this ally, it then moves the temporary targeted player that we picked up from the event into the targeted player. And if we look at attacking basically decides everything on the targeted player. So if this event tree or behavior tree actually has I think these are base character entities in a targeted player variable, then it will attack. So this is the defining point of attack. If there is something that it has that it can see, it will attack it. If things die, that's all dealt with when attacking. It checks to see if things are dead, and if they are, it clears the status. And if the status is clear, it carries on with the tree. Now, we'll have a quick look. The events are handled by a Singleton class. There's a few of them at the moment. Attacking, died, fleeing, waiting, home, healing, buffing, and need help. And these are all subscribed to by the base, the MonsterEntity core class override, basically, or a partial class. And on those, when they're received, if you have a behavior designer set up, it will send those messages to the behavior designer. If you have other behavior trees set up, this is the point where you would decide to send the events in other methods to those trees and do those calls. It's a reasonably basic system. We will look at enhancing the radio allies to have subgroups and things like that at some stage later. I just want to make sure that it all works before we get too excited with things. And that is essentially it. I don't think there's much else to it. If you've got any questions, let me know, and the next time I redo this video, once things have changed, I'll update it with any questions you've got. Alright, thanks again. We'll talk later.